Say what you like about Shannon Sharpe. His lawyer is playing chess. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the legal strategy that I see his lawyer using and why he's using this particular strategy. At this point, you may be familiar with the fact that Shannon Sharpe, a 56-year-old NFL player, Hall of Famer, he's recently had a breakout podcast. He is being accused by this woman, his former lover, of 2 years. She's about 30 something, just over 30 years younger than him. And they both acknowledge that they engaged in a BDSM type relationship over the course of 2 years. She is now saying, the allegation is that over the course of those 2 years, at least 2 of those cases were not mutual. They were not consensual. They were outside of the cultural norms for that relationship. They were outside of the sort of standard operating procedures for that relationship. Now, Shannon Sharpe has also come out and said that the relationship included handcuffs and choking and tying each other up and all the things that go along with rough sex. In her complaint, she doesn't quite say that, but she does allude to it, right? That there was some of this activity going on, but there were still these 2 instances that went beyond that. So this is his choice. She was working in a gym when he met her. Something about her was appealing to him, and that led to starting this relationship when she was about 19 years old. She is now 26 years old, okay? So Shannon Sharpe's attorney, Lanny Davis, right? And this is a veteran criminal defense attorney. He is playing chess, but can he win? Shannon Sharpe is a very mixed character. Some people love him, some people hate him. So let's see what Lanny's doing and what he's up against. Okay, so what did Lanny do? He revealed that a $10 million near settlement was happening at the exact time that she filed her $50 million lawsuit. Right? He's saying we were in the middle of settlement talks. We were about to settle somewhere around $10 million, and we were blindsided by this lawsuit. So why is he revealing this publicly? Right? Because depending on how you look at it, it could make his client look bad. But why did he do that? He did it to preempt a Rule 408 violation. Okay, so in the federal rules of evidence, there is a Rule 408. At the time of trial, he cannot get around this rule. But by releasing the information, and I'll tell you what the rule says in a minute, by releasing the information, he can get in front of this rule. This is a very advanced trial strategy. He did not reveal this for the reason that people think. Okay, so what he's doing is he's creating a workaround. He's creating a 408 workaround. Now, Rule 408 has been codified in Nevada as 48.105. So that basically just means that a state says, well, we'll just do what the federal rules of evidence say. We don't need to have our legislature rework this rule. We'll just take the federal rule. Okay, so basically what Rule 408 says, it says that you cannot bring up settlement offers, right, the $10 million, or statements made during settlement negotiations at trial, right? It basically says that whatever you guys were negotiating about, whatever you agreed to or didn't agree to, you have to keep it there. You can't bring it up at trial. Basically, that means that any evidence of those statements or those events are going to be generally inadmissible. There's one exception, which is to impeach or to prove fraud. And we're going to get into that in a minute. Okay. So why is this the rule? Not only is this the rule, but we have a very strong interest in this being the rule. And the reason that you cannot bring up settlement talks, the core reason, the reason you cannot bring up settlement talks at the time of trial is because we want people to feel free and safe to say and be honest and be vulnerable with each other before trial so that these matters don't clog up the court's dockets. We want you to really give it a good go before you tie up a judge and a jury and court staff and all that kind of stuff, right? So what happens in negotiations? People put out numbers, right? They'll say, I'll pay you 1 million, I'll pay you 10 million. And if that's not put into context, if it were brought up at trial, the jury or the trier of fact might think, oh, well, he offered to pay money, so he was admitting to it. That's not necessarily true, right? So the second reason that we don't allow these talks to come is because of exactly that. The jury doesn't have the context. So what would be required to give the jury context would be to relitigate that whole pretrial conference, trying to figure out who meant what was said, what wasn't said. And sometimes people make offers because they want it to go away. Sometimes people make offers because they actually did the thing. Other times people make offers because they don't want something else to come out, right? I might make you an offer to get this thing to go away, not because I did it or not because I think it was my fault. For example, I'll offer you this money in this car crash case, not because I think I was in the wrong. In fact, I think your driving caused it. But I'm going to offer you this money because I don't want my wife to find out that my girlfriend was in the car with me when you crashed into me, right? So if just the offer made it to the jury would have no way of knowing which of those three things is the answer, right? Okay, so that's why. And we have a strong interest in getting people to settle their own affairs. The exception is to impeach or to prove fraud. Okay, so this is what Lanny Davis is trying to get in front of, because he knows that if he waits until the time of trial, he will not be able to bring that $10 million offer up. Okay, so that's why he released it. Okay, so, and the reason I say he's playing chess is because by his releasing it, he has backed his accuser into exactly 5 options. And we're going to get into her in a minute. But she now has exactly 5 options that Lanny Davis is controlling, and none of them are any good. Okay, so what you're looking at right now, this is Shannon Sharpe's Warboard. And basically, this is what lawyers use to decide if we take this course of action, we have now limited the opposing side to these few actions. And whichever of these few actions they end up taking, then this will be our response, right? So this is how you see 2 and 3 steps ahead of somebody, right? You hear people say, oh, this person is thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead. This is what they're doing, okay? So I want you to look at the far left of this board, okay? They have released this thing. And on the far left, they have limited her universe of options to 3 things. She can deny the talks, she can admit to the talks, right, the negotiation talks, or she can stay silent. All of these are her 3 options in the face of the fact that they just revealed this $10 million settlement, okay? So if she denies the talks, one thing will happen. If she admits to the talks, there's 3 ways that she can do that, and I'll show you all of them. And then if she stays silent, this 5th option will happen, okay? So let's start at the top. If she denies the talks, right, says, I don't know what they're talking about, these negotiations never happened. If she does that, she's screwed because she gets impeached at trial as a liar, right? Remember, the exception was to impeach or to show fraud. So they have opened up an opportunity to get it into the trial through impeachment. Once she is impeached as a liar, which would be easy to do in this case, if they actually did happen, her entire credibility is shot. The jury now will believe nothing that she has to say, including this allegation, okay? If she admits to the talks, her second option, she can do that in 3 ways. She can admit to the talks, but say no more. She can just say, yes, we were in negotiations, okay? In that case, she also is in a bad situation because now the defense controls the jury, meaning they are poisoning the jury pool, right? If she admits to them and says no more, for the next year or however long it takes this thing to get to trial, Shannon Sharpe's attorney can keep hammering the jury pool, right? Because she has decided to say no more. They also control voir dire and the media, right? That the media is the vehicle that they will use. But here's how they control voir dire. Now, voir dire is the process that we use it's an interview of jurors to see whether or not we want them to sit on our jury. Now, here's what he cannot do. He cannot say to a jury in the voir dire process, do you know that my client, Shannon Sharpe, and the accuser were about to settle on $10 million? He cannot do that because that is considered bringing it up at trial, right? The voir dire process is considered at trial. But he might be able to get away with something like this. If it were the case that the accuser and the defendant were about to settle for a large sum of money, would it affect your ability to view the accuser positively or something like that, right? So they're not exactly bringing it up. They're creating a hypothetical, right? The other thing that she can do if she admits to the talk, she can say, yes, I admit to the talks, and I admit that we were about to sign a $10 million settlement. If she does that, she's also screwed. She caps the damages at 10 million, because even if the jury agrees with her, they're going to be like, well, she was willing to take 10 million, so why would we give her 50? Maybe they'll give her 11 for having to go through the trial, right? But she has basically capped her own jury. The other thing is that if she admits to the 10 million, she has killed sympathy for her, both in the press, in the Nevada jury pool, within the jury at the time of trial. The third option, if she admits to the talk, she can deny that they were near a settlement. She can say, yeah, we were in talks, but we were nowhere near agreeing on anything. We were in talks, but no, $10 million was never even on the table. Well, if she does that, then she also can be impeached at trial as a liar, because all Shannon Sharpe's side has to do, right, all Lanny Davis has to do is produce anything that shows that the offer was made, anything, any paperwork, any adjournment. The other thing that happens at this point, which goes back to why we don't want to let these conversations come up at trial, is that now, in order to do that, they're going to have to subpoena the mediator. The mediator might have to testify. The lawyers in the room might have to testify. The media's record, the mediator's files could be subpoenaed, et cetera, right? So that's not a good play for her either. Now, the last thing she could do in the face of Lanny Davis revealing this $10 million offer is that she can stay silent and she can say nothing. It seems that this is the path that she's taking, but it also is problematic. Like I said, she's got 5 possible outcomes here. None of them are good for her, okay? If she stays silent and lets the complaint speak for itself, and the complaint is a little bit of a doozy, but if she stays silent, again, the defense controls the narrative unopposed for the next year until this thing goes to trial. Now, how is staying silent different from denying the talks? At the top, if she denies the talks, that's impeachable, right? Which means that they can then bring in all of this evidence at trial. If she stays silent, they cannot bring it up at trial. They cannot use it to impeach her because she will not have told any lies. So they will control the narrative unopposed, and their goal would be to get their narrative as deep into the Nevada jury pool as possible, and it will be unopposed. So she has no options here. But at least if she stays at the bottom where she stays silent, she can't later be impeached at trial, and then they won't be able to bring this up in court. They will have to do all of their work pre-voir dire. Okay, so I'm not going to bring up the fact that this is another example of a famous athlete. He's calling it a shakedown. I don't know if it's a shakedown. If he did this thing, he needs to pay this girl. He's a big fool either way this thing goes. And he may have some pathologies that even attracted him to this young girl who literally could be his granddaughter, certainly his daughter, in the first place. But this is tongue in cheek. She's not actually a baby, even though his money will be flowing in her direction. This is the woman. Going back to this image. Now, she's a beautiful woman, and there is something about her that a man might find attractive. I don't know what it is. She seems like a nice, wholesome girl. But I looked a little bit more closely at this picture, and I'm looking at the 3 bangles on her arm. Now, these are 3 Cartier bracelets, and I'm going to show you these bracelets, and I have them here, okay? My question is, these are the 3 bracelets that she's wearing on her arm. If Shannon is made to pay her, should he get a credit? Now, I don't know for a fact that he bought her these bracelets. Somebody else may have bought her these bracelets. Maybe her career at the gym was lucrative enough. But we are looking at $30,000, and I'm going to show you them on her arm again. This is $30,000 worth of Cartier bracelets that she's wearing. Now, I happen to have this love bracelet. So I am very familiar. Now, here's the thing about this love bracelet. The love bracelet, $12,000 this one is, it comes with a screwdriver so that when the person puts it on you, the person screws it on you, it can't come off. It can only come off when that person unscrews it for you. Now, I don't know. I'm just saying, if Shannon bought these for her, should Shannon get a $30,000 credit? Maybe that's another video. You tell me in the comments what you think. Should he get a $30,000, almost like a prepayment, right? Are these bracelets a prepayment? I don't know. Okay, so I wrote a letter to Shannon Sharpe on everyone's behalf. You're welcome. And it says, "Dear Shannon Sharpe, you big dummy. Cat Williams told you this would happen, right? Y'all remember when Cat Williams said that everybody's about to be exposed? In fact, he was on Shannon Sharpe's podcast when he said that. He said everybody would be exposed. Also on Shannon Sharpe's podcast, Auntie Monique told him to grow up. She said, you need to stay away from these young girls. You need to find you an old fat girl, right? Monique told you to grow up. Now look, you big dummy. This is what you get. Sincerely, everyone. You guys are welcome. All right, you guys, my name is Gray. My channel is Counsel Gray. Thank you for watching. Please, if you liked what you saw here, like, share, subscribe, hit the bell notification, and leave a comment. I appreciate you guys.